Lord Jordan to my left is complaining about the seat he was sitting in. I'm not having this. I'm too high. I'm too high. What did Danny do? Simon, have mine. I'll never forget that moment, Danny. And Simon was humbled.
The difference is that you two had the same chairs and I had some skanky old footstool.
Are you going to tell us, Simon, that Inter, who you fancied last night, will win the thing outright?
Well, I rarely get it right, so I'm going to dine out as much as I possibly can in these moments. I think Masters can't find his backside with both hands in a funnel, so I don't think he prejudices six particular clubs. The last person to put a name on the back of the shirt was Neil Rudder, who infuriated me, come running out and raised on the back of his shirt, which exasperated me.
But why would you? You mean in terms of
because he was a cocky little sod.
You mean it's because you're judging their? You don't like the egotistical side of it.
Correct.
I just want to give an insight into how understanding and what a good work colleague Danny Murphy is. Because as we were about to come on air, Lord Jordan to my left is complaining about the seat he was sitting in. I'm not having this. I'm too high. I'm too high. What did Danny do? Simon, have mine. I'll never forget that moment, Danny. And Simon was humbled. You stood up and you took Danny's
I think he was
seat.
surprised.
Danny, you are the ideal work colleague. What a man you are.
No, really. I think it's something I always had. Yeah, just respect your elders.
Oh, God, he's going with me, I understand. Yeah, well, this is true.
He's being facetious.
Anyways, this chair okay?
The difference is that you two had the same chairs and I had some skanky old footstool. That was it.
Okay.
Do you know what? When you,
he's happy now.
I don't know if this is still the case, but even when I remember on the first time on a Liverpool bus and stuff, I'd signed there, and you're still doing the teas for everyone, and it's just part. You have a hierarchy, don't you?
Who did you make tea for at Liverpool? Everyone.
Yeah, you just do. You keep making them till you.
You never made us a cup. I mean,
No,
we're still waiting, aren't we, Simon?
I'm past that, aren't I? Past making tea, surely.
You all right this morning?
All good.
Everything good?
Absolutely.
Everything good? You said into Milan?
Told you, Milan.
I must admit, not for one moment, Danny, did I think they were going to do it last night. When Rafinha scored, I thought, oh my good God, what have we just witnessed?
It was an amazing game for entertainment value, unbelievable. But I was watching it with my boy, and I said to my boy by half time, or just before they scored the second, got the penalty, I said, because Barca were dominating them, a better team, more chances, more control. I said, there's no way Inter are going to lose this game. Nothing was going right for Barca. And even when they got to 2-2, I thought, nah.
Really?
Yeah, because Inter have got this resilience, and you start seeing things in a game where nothing was going for Barca till the end when they got to 3-2, and then they messed that up. The centre half scored, didn't they? Unbelievable.
Yeah, and Lamine hit the post.
But incredible game.
Oh yeah,
I do think the best team lost.
Yeah, I agree. 7-6 on aggregate, and Inter Milan. Wait to see who goes through tonight. Will it be Arsenal or will it be PSG? I mean, you watched it from start to finish, as I did, Danny. You're going to have to go some to experience a better European semi-final, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, that last night had the lot.
Yeah, it did.
There was needle in it. There were goals aplenty.
Yeah, mistakes.
Yeah.
Brilliant saves, brilliant goals, drama.
Yeah.
Last-minute goals. Oh, yeah, it had everything.
What do Inter pose in the final for either Arsenal or PSG?
Well organised, tactically good.
Dogged.
Resilient, dogged, tenacious. Got great experience in there. They don't panic. But I think if you were watching the two legs and you were Arsenal or PSG, you'd be really wanting Inter to go through.
Yeah.
Because Barca can absolutely tear you apart.
Are you going to tell us, Sam, that Inter, who you fancied last night, will win the thing outright?
Well, I rarely get it right, so I'm going to dine out as much as I possibly can in these moments. But I've said since the outset, since certainly the quarterfinals, I fancied Inter Milan to win the tournament, not because they're the best team, but there's something about them that will get them to the point where they can win games that they possibly shouldn't. Case in point. So I would pick Milan. Inter.
The irony is, all the qualities Inter out, which Simon talks about, that defensive, now tactical discipline, all that. This game, that one went all out the window.
Yeah.
The two legs were just chaos.
Yes.
You don't really see Inter Milan in many games like that, so it's quite unusual.
Yeah.
Well, fair play to them. I mean, to dig in the second half, they were hanging on. I mean, by a thread. They were getting pumped.
Yeah.
And then 3-2 somehow with 3 minutes to go.
Dug in. They dug in. They scored 2 goals.
Do you know what though?
In the 90s minutes, don't they? So
well, they got
about them.
They got the equaliser in, what was it, last minute kick of the game. But old school, centre half, get yourself up top, and we'll get in the box.
Yeah,
I love seeing that.
At 3-2 after Rafinha scores.
Yeah,
and their second ticking away, Danny. Lamine Yamal, he cuts in. Now he shoots and it bangs off the post. Yeah. Is that a time that Lamine will look back on and think, I should have taken it to the corner?
Possibly.
I doubt it.
17. I doubt it. I mean, he had a lot of chances in the game. He was outstanding. But yeah, you could look back and say, what we doing going to score there? And it's the way they play, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a few things happened before to get to the goal. But yeah, it's a good point. I think depends on the type of coach you got. But I was thinking, what the hell's he doing? But if it goes in, then no one says anything.
Oh, exactly. If it hammers in off the post. Yeah. Footage appears to show Barcelona's Inigo Martinez allegedly spitting towards Acerbi, the goal scorer, as the Italian ran by him in the box. Did you see it, Danny? Does it look much?
Do you know what? Not really.
We've looked at it again this morning. We slow it down. It looks as if he's lining up something. Have you been spat at on the field of play?
No, not to my recollection.
No.
I'm not. Spitting's horrible. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather someone spit at me than 2-foot me or elbow me and have me cheekbone hanging off like it's happened to me in the past. Or someone put me out for 6 weeks with a bad tackle, spit on me. You'll get the ban, you'll get sent off, you get caught.
Yeah. So, Simon, it comes down to tonight. Who's going to join Inter? Is it too binary to suggest that Arteta's one game away from either a brilliant season or a poor one?
Well, it'll be a brilliant season if we were to win the Champions League and not to just get into the final. It's a mixed season, isn't it? The fact that they've got to a Champions League semi-final can give them credence for what's ostensibly been a season where they're going to finish second or third with a much lower points total than they've gotten previously. So you try to find out if that's success or if it's progress.
Yeah.
And I think most people would look at Arsenal and say, despite this European campaign, I'm not sure if they'd make a case for inordinate amounts of progress. I don't know what you think, Danny.
No, I understand that. I think compared to last season, you could argue they've not been as good. My feeling is, if we're looking at the bigger picture, is that Arsenal are in a really good place, irrelevant of the failures of this season. I think they're in a place to be competitive with a bit more recruitment of the obvious forward area, but I think they're in a hell of a good place and still a hell of a good side. So
depends what the ownership's measuring it by, Jim.
It is.
You're now in a situation where he is given reasonable amounts of money. They do pay reasonable salaries now, so they're competitive on every front. And they're now at the top of the table. They're back in the Champions League spaces as a regular staple diet, but they're not winning things. So if you're the ownership and you're looking at it going, economically, we're in a far better place because we're now back where we once before, which is at the top table.
Yeah.
But we're 5 years into a management. We're not winning things. How much longer does this be tolerated? I think it'll be tolerated for some time because I don't think it's toleration that they're giving him. I think they believe that they're going in the right direction. They believe that economically they're getting the right returns from Arsenal. They look a decent side. They're a competitive side in every season.
Yeah.
We, from the media point of view, going, well, you're not winning anything. You're not winning anything. And that's always going to be a stick that you hit managers with.
Yeah. And that was the case as recently as yesterday because that was put to Arteta going into this. And remember, Arsenal are 1 down to PSG going into it. This lack of success thus far for Arteta at Arsenal. This was his response.
Winning trophies as well is about being in the right moment, in the right place. Liverpool has won the title with less points than we have in the last 2 seasons. With the points of the last 2 seasons, we have 2 Premier Leagues. So you have to be in the right moment, in the right place, Hopefully here we are in the right moment, in the right place in Paris tomorrow to earn the right to win the final.
So he's saying there, Danny, we've been unlucky regards timing. Arsenal finished second behind City with 84 and 89 points in the past 2 seasons. Liverpool wrapped up the league title on 82, but with 4 games left to play. Another time, things might have been different, according to Arteta.
I think the only thing he's been unlucky on is to have an abundance of injuries in the same area, which you can't ever compensate for. That was a bit unusual.
Yeah, I think you puncture that by just saying, no, now is the time.
I think there's been a few, it's not just the injuries, the real discipline early in the season cost them. And I understand the fall off more recently because of the Champions League deviation in the mindset, if you like, but it's a big summer for them. The strange thing for me, well, not that strange actually, knowing football supporters, but I listen to a lot of radio, of course, was on talkSPORT and watch the telly and stuff. There seems to be a more than a minority who are questioning whether they want him. Arteta. There's a lot of talk out there about, if he doesn't get through tonight, then he's got to go. And
well, this is it.
it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
This side's come a long way.
But it's the same thing, Simon, it always applies. Progress, yes. But it's got to result in something.
Well, that depends what you think the results have to be. I mean, Arsenal are now established as back in the Champions League, better than they've done previously in recent incarnations, because they're now going deep inside the Champions League. They're going to finish second with the lowest points total in the last half a decade to get to second spot. So I know he makes an argument, which is the points total that we got previously would have won us the league. Would have won us the league. But that's kind of irrelevant.
Yes,
they didn't win those leagues then. They're going to get a low points total this year. If Liverpool don't win all their 3 games to finish the season off, which they might not,
right,
Liverpool are going to get the lowest points total to win the league over the last half a decade. So all of those things, I mean, you can make statistics at the beginning of a conversation, not the end of it. I know he wants to make it about the fact that in previous, but that doesn't matter, Mikel. It matters about what you're doing now. If you finish with 74 points against last year's total of 89, you're 20% worse off. But you've got the Champions League as the flip argument.
His life, Simon, changes forever, and the perception of him changes forever if they get to the final and win it for the first time in Arsenal's history. Well, clearly.
From that point of view,
he's 2 games away from it.
But again, I mean, I don't know how much it changed for Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League with Chelsea. Yet Thomas Tuchel was binned by Chelsea, and people say that's the irrationality of Todd Bowley. I think there's other things behind it. Thomas Tuchel goes to Bayern Munich. His currency doesn't, he loses the league with Bayern Munich, the first person to do that in X amount of years, and he's now the England manager for a period of time. Listen, for Arsenal, it's going to establish something that no one else established before. So he'll get that unique moment, but it'll all be eclipsed if they start again next season and don't do well in the Premier League again.
Yeah.
Oh, if he wins the Champions League, gets through this tonight and wins it, he's got another free hit next year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a free hit anyway.
At least.
Yeah, I do. I think he's got. I think they'll give him. I don't think there's any consideration. I wouldn't imagine there's any consideration, because they're looking at it again. Well, there's not much wrong.
No, there isn't much wrong. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
They just need that trophy.
That's what the fans want.
Yeah.
That's what the media want.
Yeah.
But the ownership model will want it too. But they won't want it at the expense of breaking it up to start again, because they'll look at it and go, well, actually, we're whilst we are not getting silverware, we're getting enormous amounts of revenue because we're going deep inside the Champions League. We're getting all the merit payments we could possibly, besides one, which is we're finishing second. So commercially, Kroenke and his little gang will be looking at it again. Not much wrong here.
Aston Villa have criticised the Premier League's decision to move their fixture against Spurs forward, and this was after a request by their opponents. The match was originally scheduled for Sunday the 18th of May, but Tottenham argued that would put them at a disadvantage to Manchester United, who play at Chelsea on Friday the 16th, allowing for more preparation time ahead of the Europa League final on Wednesday the 21st. It should be noted, Manchester United and Tottenham, for that matter, are still going to get to that final. Villa objected to Tottenham's request to move the game forward, but the Premier League have now confirmed that's going to happen, with Villa against Tottenham taking place Friday the 16th at 7:30. It's understood, and this is a nub of Villa's anger at this one, it's understood that Villa contacted the league on several occasions this season to ask for fixtures to be moved to accommodate them with preparation and recovery time for their Champions League fixtures. Those requests were rejected. So who's saying what at Villa? Monchi on social media, the change of the fixture of Tottenham is not what we wanted. And then Villa's director of football operations, Damien Vidagani, went a bit further. And he's having a swipe here. Fixture change, and honestly, not happy. But it could have been worse. We really pushed everyone in the club at different levels, but they feel it is not fair what has happened. And he goes on to say this: hopefully in the future all of them would remind the clear prejudice in this case to Villa fans, and will be consistent and equally supportive if we need changes to help us in Europe. So in other words, he feels now that there's been bias shown to Tottenham and not shown to them previously. Do Villa have a case here, do you think, Simon? And again, I stress, neither Tottenham or United have made it to this Europa League final.
You were talking yesterday about something different, which is the goodwill that Liverpool should be exhibiting to Real Madrid in terms of letting Trent Alexander-Arnold go. And I said, that's not how it works. There's no commerciality. They're rivals. They're not going to look after one another. And Villa are not there to look after Tottenham.
Well, goodwill to Trent, really, yesterday.
But the beneficiaries of that goodwill will be Real Madrid. But the bottom line in this situation is that you're looking at a scenario where, first of all, Villa have got to appear on behalf of their fans to be very unhappy with this. So say that they're unhappy, they think it's unjust and unfair because the fans have been inconvenienced. So that's the first thing that they're going to try and tick a box on. Comparing a last game of the season fixture to requests to move perhaps Champions League games during the fixture lists that are set in stone with broadcasters who pay them the money that they get and the benefits of being in the Champions League at time of the season is not comparable.
No.
So it's a forced equivalency. I understand that they want to make it tribalistic and they want to show their fans that they didn't just lay over and get rolled over by Tottenham Hotspur and whoever else. But the reality of it is it's a completely different animal.
So are Villa wrong to weaponise it here?
Well, yes and no. They're disingenuous because it's not a fair equivalency. To compare the argument that they were advancing back in October, November, when they might have felt that they needed some help with fixtures, which are predicated upon broadcasting revenues, which they take the benefits of, and also a different time in the fixture list against a back-end season game when there is I understand the dynamic. I understand that the fans are now going to be forced to going on a Friday evening, which is going to exclude an element of the fan base. This is the same Aston Villa that jacked the prices up to such a level for their Champions League games that they prejudiced their own fans. So let's have it right.
The other thing is, let's not do an injustice to the Villa fans, right? Yes, I understand why Villa fans, but Villa fans will be bright enough to understand if they were in the same shoes as Tottenham.
The Premier League would have done the same thing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Villa fans see the logic because they love football. Go, how can you have a Europa League final with two English teams where one gets 5 days and one gets 3 days? If that was them getting the 3 days, there'd be an uproar, and at Unai Emery would be in a press conference going, we should have the same amount.
I think you're being very forgiving. I think Villa fans will be offended. And they'll say...
A minority. Most will understand.
Well, because Danny, the Villa fan, Simon, Jim, it's not a case of putting up or shutting up. Hundreds have paid for travel, hotels, sorted time off work for the game to be played on the Sunday. So he's saying, look, we're already further down the line than you might think in terms of preparations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never booked a hotel in England 3 weeks out before game, but I guess some people do. Maybe
some people seem to do. He says the Sky Cartel of 6
I'm sure
rule
the hotel will have a refund policy because ultimately you get refund policy for most things, don't you? I mean, most things are refundable in the real world. But put aside the fact that you can or you can't, the Villa fans will think that why should we... This was the fixture. It's the end of the season. Our fixtures are set in stone. Their fixtures are set in stone. Why should they get special dispensation? It's never happened before. The fact it hasn't happened before in circumstances is probably poor because we discussed this yesterday. We talked about the other European leagues wanting to ensure that their teams are given the best opportunity in European football because it does actually matter. And there is a distribution mechanism that the more successful English teams are in European football, the better the coefficient, the better the revenue generation. And as a result of that, there is a part of that that gets distributed into the pyramid. So people do get better at it. So there is a better outcome if there is a degree of cooperation and forward thinking from the Premier League, and specifically in instances like this, where there is an element of, besides people's pride, there's no harm, no foul here, really, to Villa, really.
No, I understand some who are going to be inconvenienced, of course. I do understand it, because people do pay money for things, and also kids on a Sunday going to the game, it's easier if you're taking your 4-year-old on a Friday night and he's up late. There's loads of things where you go, what an absolute pain. But from a football meritocracy point of view, it would be far more of a sin for the Premier League to let one team have 2 extra days rest before their biggest game of the season in a European final. I think that would be...
Does it play into the narrative, though, that the big 6 are always favoured before the others, ahead of the others? That's what Villa will be saying.
If you want it to. I mean, Aston Villa are no slouches.
No.
This is a big football club.
But Tottenham aren't in the top 2.
Traditionally, if you look at the idea that the Premier League in and of itself was founded by the big 5, which was Tottenham, Everton at the time, Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester United. They were the big 5. So there's always been this assertion whether it's on their field deeds or not. So what Jim is saying is that this top... I mean, I don't think so. I think Masters can't find his backside with both hands in a funnel, so I don't think he prejudices 6 particular clubs.
I mean, Tottenham and Ange are going to look pretty stupid come the game at Villa on Friday the 16th if they go out to Bodo Glimt.
Well, I don't understand why the Premier League haven't said if they don't go through, you can have it back on.
You can't do that. You can't have it contingent upon something that may or may not happen. People for the very same reason that people got to make plans, they've got to make plans.
Well, that's right.
And the problem is, if Spurs didn't ask for this extension, then Daniel Levy would be a clown. There'd be lack of preparation. Ange Postecoglou would be raging at the system. If they do ask for it and they get knocked out, then they look like the village idiots.
Well, that's right.
So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
I mean, I'll put it out there to Villa fans this morning. Good morning to all of you. I mean, you now know that the game has been moved. Your game at Villa Park against Tottenham is now Friday the 16th, on the same night as Chelsea play Manchester United. But after you've heard what you've heard in all of this, would it be more prudent for Villa just to put up and shut up? Or are you still miffed about the fact that you've had to move the fixture to accommodate Spurs, who are looking, they're not in it yet, who are looking to get into a European final against Bodo
Just
Glimt?
Quickly, Jim.
Is there a big club bias in this one?
On the flip side, they're not really seeing the positive either. Because whether they play Tottenham on a Friday or a Sunday, Tottenham are going to rest a load of players and they're there for the taking, right?
Right.
By playing them on the Friday and winning the game, you're putting the pressure on the teams who've got to play Sunday, who are fighting for the Champions League spots.
Sure.
So there's actually a footballing benefit.
It might work in their favour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decent point. Chelsea in the news. And Danny, Chelsea are expected to discuss rewarding Moises Caicedo with a new contract this summer. Last summer, Cole Palmer and Nicholas Jackson signed new deals that extended their original deals by 2 years to 2033 and secured them significant pay rises. Caicedo, of course, we know Chelsea bought in a deal worth £115 million from Brighton 2 summers ago. And his current deal doesn't run out until 2031, but now they're talking about an improved deal for him. Caicedo, I mean, is he due that? Would he be due that in terms of what he's delivered for Chelsea this season?
I mean, he's been really good. He's played really well, arguably been their best midfielder, and looks like the player the Liverpool were chasing as well. You know, there's a reason lots of clubs wanted him. But I don't see the point. Why would you upgrade him? You know, I not yet. You'd need a bit more. Do
you see the point of it, Simon? I mean, they did this with Palmer, as I say, and Jackson.
Palmer, I understand, because he's the best player they've got, and he's a superstar. Palmer's a superstar. He's a game changer.
Yeah.
There's no team he wouldn't get in. Caicedo, good, really good player. Needs to show a bit more, do it again, because he's had, good season. When I say good, I'm saying exceptional, but been good.
I mean, they're in the Europa Conference League and look like getting to the final. Of course they will. Either Betis or Fiorentina. Even that.
I'm on about his Premier League form, where the real the judgment is.
So what's he achieved of real significance then?
I can't think of a good reason if I was in the Chelsea hierarchy why I'd be giving him more money and a longer contract than the one he's on.
An improved deal at this stage for Caicedo, Simon. An improved deal on the terms he's already got, which will be...
Well, I don't know.
Pretty damned impressive.
There must be reasons for it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been this obvious assertion that Chelsea have been very robust on ensuring that wages that they pay to players are much less than people would anticipate. Hence the reason why they put them on longer contracts.
Yeah, but even if he's on 100, 120, you've got him tied down.
Sure. So, I mean, assuming that there must be a motivation, I don't know what the motivation is. If you've got to play on a contract until 2031, there must be conditions inside that contract that you wish to address. And so in order to do that, you've asked for two things: an extension on the contract. It isn't about amortising the player over a longer period of time, because you can't do that anymore. They're not allowed to do it. Unless Caicedo was bought under the regime before they changed the rules, because when Chelsea were buying these players, they were capitalising them in their balance sheet over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And then the Premier League said, we don't like that, you can't do that anymore. Now, if Caicedo was bought at a time when they could do that and they're extending his contract...
Well, it wasn't. He just said he's till 31.
You're not listening to me. When Chelsea bought players and put them on long-term contracts, they capitalised the cost of them over a longer period of time. And then the league said you can't do that anymore. Now, if they're able to extend the contract, they might be able to capitalise them over a longer period of time, which means the depreciation is less.
Right.
It might be that. Or there might be some conditions inside that contract which they don't quite like, for the commercial exploitation of him. There might be a release clause in it. I don't know. There might be something inside his contract which suggests that they've gone back to the table to renegotiate something with him.
Fair enough.
And ultimately, the only renegotiation they can do is extend the contract, give him some more dough to get a clause out they don't like.
Right. What we do know, Danny, is that your friend and mine, Trent Alexander-Arnold's off to Real Madrid. And we knew it anyway. It was the worst kept secret in football. Real Madrid have contacted Liverpool asking if they could release him early from his contract so he's going to be available to play for them for the Club World Cup. And Simon and I get into this, a whole host of Liverpool fans yesterday. Real Madrid may have to pay compensation, 500 grand, the amount they're willing to offer, so that he can line up for them in the Club World Cup that's coming up. Liverpool will seek more. Simon says you should maybe ask for like 5 and settle for 2 million. Nonetheless, though, do you think Liverpool should, maybe as a mark of respect to Trent, say, on you go, you can line up for them because you finished playing for us effectively?
I wouldn't be going down that line of doing it for Trent. I'd be doing it for the good of the club, which is if we're going to get compensated, to let him go a bit early and do them a favour that might come back to us later if they've got an interest in a player this summer or whatever. You know, fair enough. Scrub your own back. I wouldn't be doing it to say, oh, we'll look after you, Trent, you're a good lad. No, do what's best for the club always. They'll come to some sort of arrangement. They'll get something out of them. I don't see it being a big deal, and then he can go off and do what he wants to do.
What about the reaction that he's been getting from some Liverpool fans who are saying that he's let them down and that he should have stayed with the football club? Even some of the reaction that the media have been putting out to the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to Real Madrid. Jimmy Carragher spoke about this on Sky Sports. Have a listen.
This thing that I've been reading throughout the day, obviously when the news breaks, and you've got the reaction of Liverpool supporters, which are different. Some people wish him all the best. Some people are really angry. Some people are somewhere in the middle. I'm probably one of the ones who was somewhere in the middle. But I'm sick all day of reading about journalists or other people who have got no affiliation to Liverpool telling Liverpool supporters how they should feel. They're not Liverpool supporters. Liverpool as a city and a football club is very emotional, and that's what makes us what we are. And that's why you see the scenes that you saw last week when Liverpool won the league. You don't really see those scenes for a team winning the league because we are emotional. Football means a lot to us. So I just wanted to just mention that I don't think people out there should be telling Liverpool supporters how they should feel. Liverpool supporters like Trent, as Trent's going to Real Madrid, he can do what he wants. It's his career. Fine, good luck to him. But Liverpool supporters can also feel how they want about this situation.
You a special breed then, Danny?
Don't read the press if it's going to annoy you. I think the press is always going to have a judgment on fans' reaction to a player like Trent leaving. And some of the press narrative's going to be positive, and you should wish him well. And some of the press is going to go the other way. Don't worry about it. You can have your own feelings. It's fine. And we're all allowed our own opinions. My opinion of Trent's move is that I understand some of the fans' frustration because I get passion. I understand the passion of Liverpool supporters, but my feeling is that he's in a very unique position that not many Liverpool players have ever been in, which is to be able to leave the football club after winning everything and go to arguably the biggest club in the world.
Yeah.
It's not something I think I would have done, but I've never been in that position. So fair play to him. Good luck to him.
Yeah. Do you think he'll succeed at Real Madrid?
I do. Yeah. Because they win a lot of trophies, don't they?
Yeah.
And he's with a lot of good players. I think he'll do absolutely fine.
And you'd be telling Florentino Perez, think again. You can have him, not $500,000 to play in the Club World Cup.
Unless there's an underlying reason for maintaining a relationship which has some goodwill attached to it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to fall out with people unnecessarily. I'm hearing a rumour. Someone told me yesterday that Trent is denoting that on the back of his shirt, that his name on the back of his shirt is Trent.
Don't know.
I never liked that. I never liked the idea that people put their... The last person to do that was Dele Alli. Yeah.
I think it's hard. Sometimes I don't know why the reasons are. There are some players that I know have changed names for...
Well, it's not to do with football, is it?
Did you not have your initials in those white boots when you scored that goal at Wembley?
Of course not.
No, okay.
Of course not.
All right.
The last person to do that for me, the last person to put a name on the back of the shirt was Neil Ruddock, who infuriated me, come running out with Rays on the back of his shirt, which exasperated me.
No, some people do.
You're not allowed to do it because you're basically... The squad name that you put down is a name that goes on the back of your shirt.
Right.
So his name was not Razor.
No, of course not.
But why would you... you mean in terms of...
Because he was a cocky little sod and thought he could do what he wanted.
Because you're judging their... You don't like the egotistical side of it.
Correct.
What was this all about? Danny, I mean, Bus parades when you've won something. When you were at Liverpool, I saw producer Luke and I were looking at a still of you this morning with Gary Mack on the top deck of the bus after you'd won that incredible UEFA Cup final against Alaves. What was it, 5-4? And you're standing with Gary Mack and you look thoroughly as if you're thoroughly enjoying yourselves, but you were well within yourselves, just waving to the supporters, enjoying it. No hijinks. Was that something that you were in your best behaviour for, that purposefully you wanted to watch your behaviour on that day? Were you drinking alcohol on the day?
No. I think we were just a reflection of... God, I had hair there.
There it is. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see Danny and Gary.
Well, you can't see there, but my eldest son, who was only young then, obviously, he came along. A lot of the kids came on the bus.
Yeah.
We were a reflection of the manager. And the reason we had success and we won that treble was because we were disciplined and we'd followed his lead.
Really?
So there was never really, I don't even remember a conversation with the boys where we go, what we're going to do, like what's the celebration?
Right.
We had a thing later in the day, in the evening. But no, I've seen some stuff, obviously the Leeds stuff we're going to talk about.
Well, we'll do it now.
We've seen some bus parades.
Yeah.
I'm not completely against people having a drink and celebrating, but there's a line, isn't there, of obvious silly behaviour and decent, mature behaviour.
Well, this is it. And I'm hoping this doesn't bring about a pile-on from Leeds United fans who are going to say, "Oh, this was a great moment," and you're just puncturing the moment.
Well, it will.
Not so, but a few of you, no doubt, will probably think along those lines. Thousands lined the streets of Leeds. The players went on an open-top bus parade at the weekend after they got themselves up to the Premier League. Well done, Leeds. Simon, you're a big fan of Leeds, as I am, with players in the past like Lorimer and Bremner, Eddie Gray, Big Gordon. But some criticism has come the club's way for incidents, including Leeds United's midfielder Ethan Ampadu singing a notorious chant about Wilfred Gonto's manhood. Now, the song was first sung by fans in Nanto's home debut for Leeds back in November 2022. At that time, the then manager Jesse Marsh came out and said, "Oh, hang on, there's a way to be more respectful with this and be more respectful regards Nanto." So Jesse Marsh then wasn't having it. But then it reared its head again, the chant on the open-top bus, and we bleeped out, obviously, and you'll understand what we bleeped out when you hear Ampadu in full song.
1, 2, 3, 4. Willie Nanto. Willie Nanto. Cheeks Moretti, spaghetti. How you want it?
Okay, so that was a chant about Nanto's manhood, if you like. Leeds were contacted by the anti-discrimination group Kick It Out, who said in a statement, "While we believe the majority of fans singing this chant are not doing with racist intent, we would stress that racial stereotypes are harmful and offensive, irrespective of the intention to show such support for a player." What do you think of this, Simon? Even Kick It Out getting involved?
Well, they would, wouldn't they? They have to justify their existence, don't they? So you've got a person of colour singing a song about another person of colour, and the pressure group are offended by it on behalf of others that aren't offended by it. I mean, I did a podcast with Jesse Marsh, who I like. He's a bit of a fanny, but I like him, so I'm not surprised that he said these things on behalf of the player. If 3 years down the line, if this player were offended by this, I would suspect he might have said something about it to his colleagues.
You'd think.
I'm disinclined to be offended by it. I think it's childish behaviour. I think it's a bit banal. It should be beneath them. But they're in a moment of exaltation. They're pleased. I thought that when Jack Wilshere once upon a time was over the top about Tottenham when Arsenal had won a particular cup competition, I thought it was unnecessary. And then
you say that about Jesse Marsh, and the way he described him, there's only you can do. But Jesse Marsh said at the time, on Nanto, he's such a good young man, and he won't come out and say he doesn't like it. But the reality is, I think it's time to move on from this lyric.
But that's why I called him what I called him, because 3 years down the line, if this player was offended, he's now an established player. He's been at Leeds. That was 2 or 3 years ago he said this. Right? So you've got a different dressing room with a different set of people still singing the same song. It must be, I know we mustn't say these things, it must be a form of banter that they get on with and they take the mickey out of one another. And I'm sure that Jesse Marsh's analysis was probably over-egging the pudding.
I think Ampadu and Nonso are probably good friends, so he'd know if he was offended.
That's my point.
First and foremost.
That's my point.
Is it banter suitable for a bus parade with kids lining the streets?
No, so that's
with dads and mum.
No, it's not.
That's what I was coming to. So, with hindsight, I think he'll look back Ampadu and think, do you know what, maybe
Bit silly of me.
Yeah, silly, because the wording in the songs, whether it be expletives, whether it be relating to somebody's manhood, whatever, with the kids about on a celebrative day, you know, you're not in the pub.
It should be better.
If he's in the pub with a load of mates and the adults only and they've all had a drink, maybe a bit more kind of understandable.
Yeah, it should be better.
Have a bit of a bigger picture. Be a bit brighter.
Yeah.
It's not... The other thing as well, you've got the Farke situation, which adds a bit more... you know, silliness to, I don't even know what that's about.
Well, there's a video from the parade circulating on social media, allegedly showing manager Daniel Farke appearing to mime, not doing it, of course, mime snorting cocaine. That video has had 2.8 million views.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And he's laughing and he's joking. Whether that is what he's doing, whether that he's miming that or not, irrespective of that, what is he doing? I mean, when there's drink and celebration and both come together, Simon, do players and managers deserve a pass because of what they've achieved, or should the highest conduct be expected, whatever the occasion?
A bit of both, really. I mean, I remember, and people will perhaps think this is a bit miserable of me, I remember winning the 2005 Ashes, and our entire cricket team turned up drunk as skunks at number 10.
Embarrassing.
And looking like they'd climbed out of a dustbin. And I thought to myself, why would you want to look like that? Irrespective of who you think the Prime Minister is, and I was no admirer of Tony Blair, the point of the matter is that you were turning up at
Downing Street,
at the Prime Minister's residence, and you were in front of the nation, and you looked like you'd all been out, and you had been all out.
I bet they all regret it, though.
So you look back and think to
You
yourself,
think?
so the sport itself,
Yeah.
cricket has, you know, we have sledging and we have all the dynamics of cricket, but there is an element of a behaviour that you expect from cricketers and as professional sportsmen. I don't think there was a massive need to be offended by this. If it were me, I would be saying, lads, come on, you know, we've just achieved something that's really good.
It can wait, that.
And we don't really need to be doing that. It's a bit silly. But you're dealing with young men.
Yeah,
you're dealing with institutionalised young men that don't realise what the optics of the real world are and don't realise the ramifications of it.
You're right, Simon.
See, I'm looking at it now, Danny. Ultra woke nonsense. Here you go. Jim
hold
Woke
on.
White.
Hold on. I think we find a nice balance. We're not that offended where we're going, oh my God, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
Ideal world, it would have been dealt with a bit better.
Yeah.
I think it's different when you're talking about players and management. I really do.
I do too.
I think in management, you're reflective of the club. You're the leader of the players.
You're in authority.
You're in authority. You're in a very privileged position where you need to
reproach.
conduct yourself in a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to jump on Farke because I don't know the detail of it, so it's hard to just jump on him. But it does seem a bit silly, that, because I saw it and that's what he was mimicking. You know, come on. Whatever the in-house joke is, whoever
Right.
you're doing it to.
He'd probably say he wasn't, but anyway.
Well, he was.
I watched it with you.
But
Yeah.
he needs to be held to an account,
To a high standard.
higher account than the players, I think.
Yes.
Management is
He's not one of the lads. He's the leader.
I think Amadu's been a bit silly, but he's singing a song that all the fans know and sing anyway. Really, the bit he shouldn't have done. I mean, he shouldn't have done it in the first place. But after the song, and then he reaffirms the song with his own words about it to confirm the song.
I mean, Leeds United themselves have tried to outlaw them doing this.
Have they?
They don't want them doing it. They've worked with supporters groups even to say, we don't want you singing it when we're winning a game at Elland Road.
Well, maybe Leeds
so
fans
please don't.
Maybe Leeds fans could let us know if
But
they
that's
do
just
still
the
sing.
point.
Right.
But they must be a tad infuriated if that's what they're actually doing. If what you're saying is that they wanted to outlaw the chant, then they're going to be a little bit exasperated with one of their best players singing it on a bus. But
before we go to calls, Simon, I know this will, like the blue touch paper. Is this just a British thing? Dare I say it?
No.
Is this an English thing?
No, hold on. We had players. Didn't we have that situation at the end of last season where a particular player was singing a song, a French song, that massively offended Wesley Fofana, wasn't it, at Chelsea? And it had racial connotations attached to it. It was,
I recall that.
Fernandes,
So the Argentinian team.
correct.
I recall that.
And they did stupid things.
Yeah.
They say stupid things at times. Cucurella was involved in doing
Yes,
something. They
good
did
point.
stupid
I forgot
things.
about that.
Right. I'll put it out there. I mean, Leeds fans, obviously, you're still delighted to have achieved what you hoped your team would achieve, and that's promotion to the Premier League.
It's not a slant
Having
on
said
Leeds,
all
Joe.
that, no,
It's just we're talking about players.
players in
Football,
general terms,
yeah.
when drink and celebration come together, do players and managers deserve something of a pass, or should the highest conduct be expected, whatever the occasion? Big talk that Saudi Arabia may well be interested in one of the players at Manchester United who could really hold his hands up and say, yeah, I gave my all this season, and that player is Bruno Fernandes. talkSPORT Saudi reporter Ben Jacobs joins us live. Ben, what more can you tell us on this? Is it true that Bruno's been offered a mega money deal to leave United and join Al Hilal?
It is, Jim. Good afternoon. So Al Hilal see Bruno Fernandes as one of their top targets. They also made an approach in summer 2024 before he signed a new deal at Manchester United. And Bruno Fernandes has a non-binding 3-year contract offer worth in the region of £65 million per year, inclusive of base wage and also bonuses. It's non-binding because Saudi tend to bid blind, and an offer arrives kind of in your inbox that you may not even know about. And from there, it's a point of negotiation and conversation. But even if you say yes, Saudi can kind of also back out. And this is very common. And Bruno Fernandes will be given less than 2 weeks to give a formal answer as to whether he wants to negotiate, because Al Hilal would like to sign him, along with any other marquee signings, before the Club World Cup this summer. Now, Manchester United's position is they haven't had an approach from Al Hilal. They deny the existence of any release clause, even though some reports in Saudi say there is a £60 million buyout. That's not my understanding from speaking to Al Hilal and Manchester United sources. And of course, in the absence of that, Manchester United would have all of the cards, and it could likely take a British transfer record fee to make Manchester United engage, because the club's position is clear. They do not want to lose Bruno Fernandes, but Al Hilal's interest is genuine.
Wow. Danny, you maybe played at the wrong time, mate. Did you? How would you fancy that? 3-year deal, Al Hilal, $65 million a year.
I mean, it sounds perfect, but not when you're 30 and you've got Bruno's talent. He could play anywhere. He's good enough. I still believe that you'd see even better from Bruno in a team that's not struggling. I think you'd see less petulance. I think you'd see a more just somebody focused on his football. He's been a breath of fresh air this season for Manchester United. In a team that struggled, he stood up and been counted.
And he's the one that you could argue build the team around him.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah. But if you're talking 100 million, if they go to 100 million in Saudi for a 30-year-old, from United's point of view, it's going to be hard to turn that down.
I mean, Sam, you've spoken to the Saudis. You've got to know our friend Turki Al Sheikh. When they talk to people and they talk money, and in this instance, as Ben says, 65 million per annum over 3. Yeah. Even though you're Bruno Fernandes and maybe you've still got a lot to do in English football here, your head's bound to be turned, surely.
Yeah, but it's Man United's gift to determine. If Manchester United... if we are led to believe that Man United are struggling for cash, which I think is quite laughable, but let's suggest that we do buy that line, and that they've got an issue with profit and sustainability, then if the Saudis are prepared to pay enormous amounts of money for a 30-year-old, it might be a transaction that United are prepared to bite on. I doubt it. And whether Bruno Fernandes fancies £65 million a year or not, he's got 2 years left on his contract. So unless there is a release clause, then it's a non-conversation unless Man United want to make it a conversation.
Well, if he's only got, you say he's only got 2 left.
2 + 1 with an extension on United's favour, I think.
Well, Ben, I mean, we heard similar conversations about Mo Salah at Liverpool, and we know what happened there. He only stays with Liverpool, and the rest is history. I mean, we've been in this movie before, Ben, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we have, but because we've been in this movie before, the budget is still there, and that's perhaps the most interesting thing, that central funds get allocated to clubs. There's $2 billion a season across all clubs. The money is not divided equally. And Al Hilal, because of the Club World Cup, have kept that Salah budget, which of course wouldn't have required a fee to Liverpool, but the sign-on fee and £170 million a year over 3 years, so over 500 million, still on the Al Hilal books to spend and go and get marquee signings. And that's why they could go big on Bruno Fernandes. In addition, Victor Osimhen is a target too. Some say Rodrigo. That one's going to be tough to pull off. And then as an aside, Bruno Fernandes, if he moved, is going to be managed by somebody new because Jorge Jesus has departed. And although Inzaghi at Inter is the top choice, they've got a Champions League final, they're fighting for Serie A, they're in the Club World Cup. And as you can imagine, Jim, it's a deal breaker to Al Hilal. They must get a new manager in and a marquee name for the Club World Cup. So if Inzaghi says no, there's two other leading candidates from the Premier League, Nuno at Nottingham Forest and Marco Silva. And I'm led to believe if Inzaghi doesn't answer in time for the Club World Cup, that Al Hilal may turn their attentions to Marco Silva.
Wow. Isn't it incredible how their lives can change like that? You've got a decision to make, Simon, and it's money based. Maybe Marco Silva will think, yeah, I'll go out there, give it a go.
Maybe. I mean, he's done a very good job at Fulham. I mean, he's moved on from the manager that I was very critical of a few years ago for legitimate reasons at the time.
Well, didn't he turn down a Saudi offer a couple 2 seasons?
He did.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Is he at a peak now at Fulham? Danny, is Fulham his ceiling? Has he reached it?
I don't think it's his ceiling at all. I think he's done an absolutely brilliant job and he improved players. They haven't particularly gone huge in the transfer market. He's done really, really well.
Could he get a top 4 job here?
It's a difficult one. Top 6 or 7 maybe, like at Tottenham.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's going to be there. I think he might have taken Fulham as far as he can go.
Right. So Marco Silva, a name in the frame there. And Ben, to finish with a 3-year deal, maybe on offer to Bruno Fernandes, £65 million a year. But Bruno has yet to respond to the proposal. That's as far as we know.
Yeah, so there's been a series of meetings, and I'm told Bruno Fernandes a few weeks ago was part of a remote meeting. There's been some in-person meetings between Bruno Fernandes' camp and Al Hilal. They're largely billed as kind of due diligence. Bruno Fernandes has not said yes or no in a formal sense anyway. And this 65 million number, it's important to note, is base wage and bonuses. So it'll be broken down into a variety of things, from match appearances to sign-on fees to team goals, all the normal things, but no doubt with money for image rights and various broader things that don't just pertain to Al Hilal.
Yeah.
Because if Bruno Fernandes joins, it's the same year as the television rights deal. And even though Ronaldo is expected to extend at Al Nassr, he's not going to be in Saudi for the full duration of the next TV cycle. There's a big Portuguese audience. There's a lot of money being spent from Portugal to buy Saudi Pro League rights. So the money is also about finding a new Portuguese star to consolidate and retain that audience. And that's why Bruno Fernandes is important, if they can get him, of course, to not just Al Hilal, but the wider Saudi Pro League. Because once Ronaldo goes, if Bruno Fernandes comes and stays for a few more years, then you can still get a return on investment from Portugal. And this summer for Saudi, it's a two-way market. It's not just about spending money anymore. It's about bringing in money from television rights and from a two-way market. So at Al Hilal, we might not just see them spend on a Bruno Fernandes or an Osimhen. We might see them sell as well. And a player like Alexander Mitrovic, for example, could depart, I'm told, for more money than he was originally signed for.
I was in Glasgow on Sunday for the latest Old Firm match. That one ended at 1 apiece. Celtic, of course, have won the league. Celtic, of course, have won the League Cup, and they're looking very good for a treble in the Scottish Cup final. So Rangers have a lot to do to narrow the gap, and takeover talk at Rangers in Scotland continues with a deal involving Leeds United owners, the 49ers, said to be moving closer by the day. So just how imminent is it, and how transformative could it end up being? Former chairman and current shareholder Dave King joins us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Dave, thank you so much for joining myself, Simon and Danny live on the show. Can you bring us up to date? What is the latest, and is this takeover happening? What can you tell me?
Jim, good morning. Yeah, look, I think that if I take you to the position as I see it right now, I would say that there's a probably 90% probability it will happen. You know, these discussions have been going on for a long time. About 6 months ago is the first time I chatted to Andrew to see if there was a basis of getting a deal done that would work for both parties. And while kind of along the way with any negotiations like these, there were times where it was probably touch and go. If you ask me where we are now in terms of legals being signed, in terms of the type of conditions precedent that still has to be fulfilled, I would certainly put it at above 90% right now.
90%. So it's close, Dave. You've been involved with the club for many years now. Rangers fans know what you've done for this football club. But what will it mean for you? Will this see you endure, 2 decades or more association with Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I see this as a bit of I suppose, a legacy issue for me, if it might sound that grand. I did make a statement, I think probably around about last September, October, where, the club was clearly in trouble operationally and financially. And at that time, I kind of made an open offer, to come back, maybe spend 2 years to try and get the operational issues back on track, get the funding back on track. And in that time, to try and find new potential owners who could take the club forward, because I think it was clear, both with inside the club and outside the club, that the current shareholder directors had investment fatigue. And you certainly can't keep running a club like Rangers with a kind of cap-in-hand approach to funding. Every time you need £1 million or two, you run around with a cap-in-hand to directors. That wasn't sustainable. And I think the fact that Rangers had fallen so far behind following 55, I just felt the gap was too big to bridge, just looking at local investment from the directors. So I started a project at that time to see if I could try and find someone who I could bring in who was substantial, who could take the club forward and make sure we didn't only have a football plan, but there was a financial plan behind it as well. Someone with deeper pockets, someone with sustainability in terms of funding. I was talking to the Saudis at that time, and then I got a call, I think around about October, from Paul Murray, in fact, that says, Dave, I'm aware you are looking to try and find investors. I've got these guys. I think they're the real deal. And he initially put me in touch with Andrew.
This is Andrew Kavanagh of 49ers.
We chatted, had a couple of initial meetings. And then I asked him the one question when a lot of these things fall apart, which is, can you give me proof of funds? And it was before I take this further, before I engage with other shareholders, before I engage with any of the board members, can you give me proof of funds that you have the cash available to not only buy out existing shareholders who the other kind of weak shareholders who'd like to get out, but also enough to put new money into the club? And it was only once they'd satisfied me through their bankers. I mean, the amount of money I asked them for, I'm not going to disclose the figure, but it was very, very substantial. The amount of money I thought necessary to get this deal done and to fund the club for the next 2 years to bridge what I perceived to be the gap between us and our competition at the moment. And once they provided the proof of funds, we then started kind of serious negotiations where I started to talk to other shareholders, other directors, and see if we could package something that would allow them to come in and take control of the club. So it's taken 6 months to get to where we are. But if, again, to repeat what I said earlier, if I look at where we are legally, commercially, and with the kind of type of approvals required, as you know, you need fit and proper, you need SFA, etc., etc. I can't see anything that would stop the deal happening now.
Okay, Dave, here's Simon who's with me.
I mean, you talked about investment fatigue. I would also think there was an element of competency fatigue in some of the decisions that were being made by the existing Rangers board. When you get this new investment, this new ownership model coming in, what do you expect to happen? Because it's a slightly curious one. You've got this ownership model that's invested heavily in Leeds, that are now landing back in the Premier League. Do you think that advances the opportunity for Rangers, or in part might detract from it a little bit?
Look, I think that the situation regarding Leeds, as I understand it, it is not going to be a distraction from Rangers, from Rangers' perspective. But what I was looking for, as far as Rangers is concerned, was to try and get investors who, first of all, understood that there's no short-term fix here. I mean, I think we're back to the time where Stephen came in. When I first hired Stephen, when it was understood that significant cash was required, but it would take a number of windows. I don't look at our level of, say, transfer activity. I mean, I think it's been quite deplorable over the last number of seasons, and certainly as a supporter watching the games, I think we're way short of competing. So we needed to get an investor who could come in and have a proper financial plan. And when I say a proper financial plan, something where there was a commitment over a number of years, where the money would be available for a period of time, and that financial plan would include all of the operational issues, the player trading issues, because, you know, if I look at the club, it's been pretty much hollowed out in many of the areas that you would normally expect, you know, a club of Rangers to be operating at in terms of, I think the academy has gone backwards, the player trading model that's been stressed so much has clearly not been working. I mean, it's obvious.
Well, the reason I asked, Dave, was not necessarily to the motivation of the ownership model coming in, because with all due respect, I want to be careful choosing my words because I know the scale of the football club I'm talking about. But with Leeds landing back in the Premier League and the commercial revenues that are in the Premier League, is there a danger that Rangers could become a form of feeding club for a Premier League club that has huge aspirations? Their chairman's talking about being a dominant force in Europe. Is that a concern?
I don't think. I mean, I see the opposite perhaps as being the risk, and right. I may be being unkind to Leeds here, but I think the difference, which is understood by Andrew and the 49ers, that is with Rangers you don't have the yo-yo risk that you always have with a club. No disrespect to Leeds. At least when they come into Rangers, they know if they make an investment, that European football is pretty much assured, and there's a reasonable level of certainty as to, let's say, how low Rangers can go. I think the situation is very different for Leeds United, and the type of investment required in England to maintain that, I think, can be challenging for any investor, no matter, you know, how substantial you are. Whereas if you look at Scotland, you look at the size of Scotland, I think the exposure that they will get as a club participating in I'm not saying a two-team league, but it's difficult to envisage Rangers or Celtic not being first or second. So European football in various stages will be there. And I think it's easier to put the financial plan to support the football plan in a club like Rangers than it is for someone like Leeds United, where I think it's a lot more challenging. And as exciting as it is for them to begin up to the Premier League, they're going to have a lot of financial budgeting decisions to make if they want to stay there.
I know how close you have been, Dave, to improving Rangers, to making Rangers a better football club now for many, many years. But as you know, and it will pain you to know it, that the gap between Rangers and Celtic is hugely significant now. So could this 49ers new ownership help redress the balance in your eyes?
I think so, because I think I've been fortunate enough to be involved in discussions with them directly, so I've got a sense of, because I asked them the question as well, when Paul Murray introduced them to me, is why Rangers? Why, I get your interest in the 49ers, you're expanding franchises. I see why football is a great business opportunity. We can see what you've done at Leeds United in the commercial revenue side. I can see that Rangers probably provides a better base to leverage that off for. But why are you interested in Rangers? It's not fashionable, it's Glasgow, it's not London. And I got all the right answers, that they understand the football business, they like the football business, and they would be in Rangers for the long haul. And the other thing I liked about speaking to them is that, having been around the club for 20, 25 years, David Murray and thereafter, I think there is a big disadvantage in clubs like Rangers where the board and the decision-making is dominated by supporters. Mm-hmm. You get this absolute, doom, gloom where, you lose a game at the weekend and there's this, we need to do this, we need to do that, and we need to sign players, we need to get rid of the manager. And then you win a game and all of a sudden everyone's on top of the world. I think they're going to be more calculated, more neutral. And I think their football plan and the financial plan that supports that will be far more robust, far more tangible, and we'll be able to ride through the bad times if there is a period of poor results. And I suspect that can happen, because I'm now talking as a supporter. If I look at the quality of what Rangers have got on the field, I don't think we're 2 or 3 players away from challenging for the league title. I think there's a lot more than that has to come in if we're going to have a financial plan to support the football plan.